So we are going live and we've just started recording for the evening. Thanks everyone who's joining us. I know a bunch of people are going to keep jumping on. Tonight we're going to be talking about understanding and improving your bungalow's plumbing systems. Just a little bit of housekeeping first before I introduce our speakers. Just due to the volume of participants, the way that we do this is you're muted once you enter into the room with us. And the chat is going to be disabled throughout this entire evening. But if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. I'll be going through those throughout and I'll answer some of the easier ones that I know, we can just get back to you quickly on. And then the rest I'm gonna save for the end after our speakers are finished tonight and we can address them then. We have a hard stop tonight at 7:30. So they're gonna speak for an hour-ish and then we'll take questions after that. And get through as many as we can. Hopefully we can get through all of them. We're also going to have a follow-up email, and that's going to include a full recording of tonight, as well as any relevant handout materials or anything like that that might be mentioned. So just to tell you a little bit about tonight's class. Tonight's class is going to help you understand your bungalow's plumbing systems and the common ways they can malfunction. We have Kris Kauth and Jack Kronowski of American Vintage Home. They're going to cover plumbing in different parts of your home, important maintenance, how to recognize problems and address some of them yourself, and when it's time to just call professionals. Just to tell you a little bit more about them as individuals, Kris is a plumbing department manager with American Vintage Home. His career started in residential construction and rehab work back in 1985. He's been in the plumbing and sewer trade for over 15 years, and he loves helping clients understand what's going on inside of their homes. Jack Kronowski is a plumbing engineering consultant and joined American Vintage Home in 2002 after previous positions in technical sales. He enjoys explaining the technical aspects of plumbing systems to clients in order to help them more fully understand their houses as well. So you can see why we chose them for speakers tonight, why we're lucky to have them. Thank you both so much for joining us. I'm going to just turn this over to you, I'm going to turn my camera off for the next 45 minutes or an hour. I'll be here if anyone has questions, and again, I'll be checking in on the Q&As for you guys. So thanks, let's get started.
Okay, we'll share screen. Welcome everybody. We're gonna share a screen and begin our presentation now. Oh, perfect. Okay. So understanding and improving your bungalow's plumbing systems, right? Plumbing follows basic laws of nature. Gravity, pressure, and water seeks its own level. Now, the first slide that we have here is going to give you a cross section of kind of your sewer system and your water system, how it goes into your home, okay? Let me see. Out here in the street, underneath your street, you're going to have the sewer line. You're also going to have your water line, okay? Your water line is going to go into your home. It's generally a lead line, okay? And it'll either come up through the floor or it'll come through the side of the wall, and you'll have a shutoff and possibly a water meter right there. Now, your sewer system, all the water that goes in the house is going to have to eventually go out through the drains, right? So you use your faucets, your sinks, your showers, your tubs, all that stuff, and down it goes down the drain. Now, when it comes out, it's going to go under your floor through a cast iron pipe usually. You have a floor drain down there as well and some other stuff. On its way out, your downspouts that are from your gutter systems may or may not go into it. The way they were originally designed, they would all flow into it. Some people have taken them out, not putting rainwater where it needs to be, treated by the city and getting it out on the grass where it can get reabsorbed. So it goes out, and what you guys have is you have a combined sewer system. So your storm water and your sanitary, so your sewer water and your rainwater all go through the same place. Out in the suburbs, they generally disconnect those things. The rainwater, which needs to get treated a little bit less, goes to one place, and the sewer goes to another place. If we look at, I'm having a tough time seeing the mouse here, Rebecca. I don't know why. Are we able to make it bigger, the pointer? Okay. The next slide shows, and I'm hoping that you guys can see this, the green line at the bottom is your sanitary sewer, is your sewer connection going out, okay? You may notice that in the back or the sides of your homes, you have catch basins, okay? And what those were used for was all your kitchen line would go down into the catch basin in the back, and generally your back downspouts would go into that same catch basin. And then when it would rain and all that, the water would kind of build up and it'd flush it all out through your through the pipes going under your floor or on the side of the house all the way up to the city sewer, which is generally out in the street in front of your home. As far as the water distribution on this slide, you're going to have the water come in from the city. Okay, it's going to be under the ground. They try and make it 5 feet deep. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not that deep, but it tries to be 5 feet, so it's below the frost. It'll come into your home, either come up through the floor or through the side of the wall, maybe have a water meter, and then from there it's distributed throughout your entire home. It's going to go to your water heater, it's going to go to your tubs, your sinks, the kitchen, the laundry tub in the basement, and all that stuff. Switch our next one. Where's that? Okay, Jack, you want to go over this stuff here?
All right. The typical features of Chicago bungalows, plumbing. A very common feature is an external catch basin. There were code up to about 1960 in Chicago area. That's why all the bungalows originally were outfitted with them. The downspouts and the external drain tile are very often connected to the city sewer, where the stormwater is thereby flushed down into the sewer. Most of the bungalows contain full basement, and some of them have the original concrete laundry sink. There's flow drains. Oftentimes you find stem pipes connected to flow drains because of the drainage issues. Chlorinated city water. City water it contains chlorine as its feature in order to prevent contamination.
Okay, I think we've covered that. Be able to look at these.
Mm-hmm. Some of the other characteristics, by older code, drum traps are commonly used for the bathtub drainage, which are cast iron devices which entrap contaminants. Originally designed to keep the drain lines clear, they present their own issues such as rusting, such as difficulty to get in to clean the pipes. Most often we see a cast iron or even clay piping below the basement floor. Original service lines of the water supply were lead up until 1980s. Galvanized hot and cold water supply lines were originally installed, and we still see a lot of them in Chicago area bungalows. The drain lines and vent lines are made out of cast iron components and galvanized piping, oftentimes prone to corrosion and leaking of either water or sewer gas smells. Often a cause of a problem.
One of the toughest ones to diagnose.
Right,
Isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, because it goes in the walls, and then we try to find where it's coming from. Original drain, the hose bibs with indoor shuttles for the supply of water to the garden hoses. These are the prone to freezing during the winter times. We always recommend to replace them with the frost-free type spigots, which is the modern design, modern code.
Okay, your water service line, where it comes in, if you're ever wondering, do I have a lead line? Do I have a copper line? I'm not sure. There's a little penny test that you can do. So grab a penny or a coin. And if you rub the line and it's shiny, okay, well, shiny could be galvanized, it could be lead, okay, and then you take a magnet, you put it on it, and obviously, if it doesn't stick, it's going to be lead. If it sticks, it's going to be galvanized. And if you rub it off and you look at it and you see copper, you have a copper line, which is good, because that's really ultimately what you want to have. Everybody's going to eventually replace all the lines around with copper lines. On this slide, you'll see it. That's kind of a new copper water service coming through a home. The piping materials, as Jack kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, upper left corner here, you're looking at the galvanized water lines. And believe me, when you look at those and you see that stuff inside, all the mineral buildup after these 80 years of the city water going through there, they look just like that. And sometimes they're all the way closed off. And you would be surprised that you get any water pressure through there. But you do get a little bit, but it could be so much better if they were brand new and clean and that was out of there. The middle slide here is the clay pipe, okay? And we had clay pipe, it's generally in 2-foot pieces, okay? And it gets put together, one piece goes in the other, and they put concrete around that and that. And that stuff has lasted for a long, long time, but it's getting near the end of its useful life, okay? Why that clay will sit in there, the bedding and everything eventually gets moving, and clay pipe isn't the most flexible of pipes. You move it and it will crack on itself. Upper right corner of the slide is a lead. That's a piece of lead service line. That's what your water generally comes in the home if you've not changed it. Bottom left is cast iron, which is a approved material in the city of Chicago for underground and above ground. The clay pipe that I talked about right there in the middle. Copper, you're going to be using copper for water lines, not so much drain lines anymore, mostly water lines is what you would put in now. PVC is allowed above ground, just not below. But we're talking about they're doing a little bit, but they're dabbling in the PVC underground, right?
Yeah, they're trying to bring the Chicago code up to where everybody else is.
The rest of the
guess.
world
The
is.
rest of the country, right?
Yeah. Chicago, here's a little snippet about the Chicago Water Service, okay? Your Chicago Water Service system, it meets all national, local, and industry testing standards, okay? So it's not like, you're not getting sent poison here. But all the bungalows that you guys are in up until 86, they were required to put in lead service lines. And we're finding now that that's not so good. They were changing out water meters. They had a program where they were putting in water meters, and they kind of stopped doing that a little bit because they were finding an increase in the lead in the water. And I'm not positive why that is. So they ended up giving whoever they did that to some filters, and as you see over here, some water filters, and they stopped doing that until they can investigate that further. We have this November is they're going to vote on the lead replacement program, which will be if low-income folks, they're going to offer, and you'd have to apply, and you'll see this. You just go on the city website. You can look for this. There'll be an application process, and they may go ahead and replace your lead water service for free. For the rest of you, they got it to where you're going to be able to go on and apply, and they're going to waive some of the fees. And I'll tell you what, when you start talking about digging in the parkway, pulling up the sidewalk if you need to, having to maybe go near the street where the water main is and close the one over here and reconnect the one over there, that's a lot in fees. Shoot, that adds up to thousands of dollars of fees that they'll be waiving. So it's going to be a pretty attractive program for you guys. If you'd like to request a water quality kit or schedule the Department of Water Management to take some samples, you can give them a call and they'll come out and take care of that for you if you're worried or curious. And at the bottom of this has we got a little thing on here, and this is what the city of Chicago recommends. If you're afraid of the lead that might be in there, or if you have high lead, if you haven't used your water like in a bathroom for, let's say you wake up in the morning, okay, it's been sitting in the pipe all night, and that they recommend running it for a little while to flush the water that's in the pipe out that was just sitting stagnant. And then go ahead and you're using brand new fresh water that would not have taken in any lead. Certainly taking a shower, the lead is not absorbed through the skin. So taking a shower would flush and get everything moving through that lead service line. And then you don't really even have to worry too much. Go ahead and take this one, Jack.
Okay.
Things to know about your home.
Just a few things to know about your house for each homeowner. The main thing is know the location of the essential components, such as the main water shutoff, in case you develop a leak. You need to shut it off before damage happens. How to shut off the fixtures, which are the shutoff valves underneath the sink, near the toilet, etc. Where the sewer cleanouts are. Those are the maintenance points in case you have a blockage for the technician to route the sewer, in order to be able to get in. Sometimes wintertime, there's a lot of snow. It's hard to find where those points are if they're outside, if nobody knows where they are. So it's a good idea to have notes, pictures, or some kind of a landmarks, bird band or something to mark them. What else? Keep a list of regular and seasonal maintenance needs. They're pretty much the same from year to year. So this way you don't forget. There are some things that are simple to fix yourself. So you don't necessarily need to call a plumber, and we'll present a list of those things. What's flushable? Toilet paper only. The bungalows are older structures. The systems are older. Unless the sewer line has been totally reworked, you have to assume that by flushing what they call the so-called flushable wipes, you may cause problems. So we don't recommend really do not use the sewer system as a trash disposal line. It's not for
paper towels. No.
Right, exactly. What can go down the kitchen sink? Be careful about grease, oil, starchy foods, etc. Again, even with a sink disposal, we do not recommend to use it as a trash disposal unit. It's not. If aside from a danger to breaking the device itself, you can load up your kitchen line with gunk, with kind of a greasy sludge, which does a very good job of preventing the water from flowing down the drain. We see a lot of those issues in plumbing.
So with Thanksgiving coming up, nobody should be peeling potatoes straight into the sink and kind of turning the disposal on and grinding it all up and all that stuff.
Even be careful about throwing eggshells down the disposal.
Yeah.
Even though it's supposed to be good for it to keep it clean, but in excess, it's not good. Regular inspection maintenance. Clean the basic items such as faucet screens or aerators. Most of them are easy to unscrew, and just you get rid of the sediment, the residue that prevents the proper flow. Shower heads, they have a tendency to accumulate the calcium deposits. So an old toothbrush would do a nice job of cleaning it up.
The other thing you guys can do to jump in real quick is if you have a fixed shower head, some of us have handhelds, but we have fixed shower heads up there, is you can get some CLR solution, okay, and they sell that at any hardware store and mix that up, and you can put it in what would be a Ziploc type bag and put it up on the shower head and then tape it or rubber banded if that'll hold it. But you just leave it up there overnight, and then you can pull it out and you don't have to take the shower head down, and it will get all of what Jack was talking about out of there.
We'll soften it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll soften it up and you can scrub it or whatever, but you can get it clean that way. It's kind of easier than pulling it off.
Sometimes even vinegar works.
Even
Works
vinegar
okay
would work
too.
as well.
Disposal, cleaning. Yeah. Want to make sure you get your bread ties and any plastic items out of the unit itself. Gutters, very seasonal. Make sure to remove the leaves before the blockage of the downspout occurs, and then you have water flowing over the edges. Check shower valves and supply. Are they working? Are they leaking? That's for emergency use. You want to make sure that if there's a leaky faucet, you can shut the supply off. Washing machine hoses. Check the age. If they're more than a few years old, it might be a good idea to invest in a new set. They do have a tendency to burst because they're constantly under the pressure of the house pressure, which is about 35 psi or more. Basement pipes, especially those old galvanized ones. Look at the threads. If they appear rusty, if there's visible calcium deposits, that signifies a pinhole leak somewhere. Sometimes you see droplets of water just dropping once every couple of minutes. That's time to call somebody to make sure that it doesn't get any worse and flood the basement. Water meter, good idea to take a look at it once in a while, once a week or so. When there's nothing in use in the house, the water meter should be stationary. There should be no little handles spinning. If there is a motion on the what do you call it?
The little dial or the
little
interface
dial.
in that.
Yeah, it could have a running toilet or a drip somewhere or a leak on the pipe somewhere.
Yeah, and some of these running toilets, you don't even see them. It's inside the bowl, just dripping into the overflow tube. And even if you know it's there, you look at it, you're trying to see the water running and you can't really see it. So sometimes it's a good idea to go down there, snap a picture of your water meter that shows all the readings, go do something without running any water, have a look at it in about a half hour. By that time, if something was running, the numbers would have changed or the little red dial would have moved. Something would have changed a little different. But I've done it before to where I'm checking to see if there's a leak and I'm looking at the water meter. I'm like, the darn thing's not even running. There's nothing leaking. And then sure enough, there is. It's just that you can't sit there long enough because it's very slow leaks and very slow movement on there. Just something I've run across.
Another thing to look at is occasionally look under your P-traps under sinks for signs of moisture. There can be leakage because of the failed gaskets. Oftentimes, if you have the shiny chrome and metal P-traps and tubular components for the sink drainage, with age, they do have a tendency to corrode, especially if harsh chemicals were used on the inside. And they'll develop a drip, and sometimes more serious than that. But if you look at it once in a while and catch any drips before they really become disastrous, it can save on the deterioration of the cabinetry and all kinds of unpleasant things. Floor drains in the basement. They are designed to have a P-trap down the bottom, and that is the purpose of it is to prevent sewer gases from going up into the interior of the basement. That should always be certain amount of water visible when you look down into the drain, your basement drain, and look at it in the floor. If there isn't any, it's time to take about a quarter of a bucket of water, just pour it down there. That will prevent the sewer gases from going up.
Flush your water heater. If you have an older one, you got to be a little bit careful about that as far as turning things and all that. But definitely if you have newer water heaters that were installed, you're going to want to flush them to make sure there's no sediment that is in the bottom. And that the valve, and as long as you use these valves, these shutoff valves that Jack was talking about, under the sinks and the main shutoffs to the home, the shutoffs to the laundry, to the washer, and that, as long as you use those once in a while, they won't seize up and freeze up, and you'll be able to actually use them. It's when you don't touch these things for a long time is when they freeze up. And then sure enough, you go to use them because something happens and water's pouring out and you're like, oh cow, I can't shut anything off. Now what do I do? So they end up calling a city and they shut off at the B box. Then have what, sewer lines rotted?
The sewer
inspected?
lines, yeah, have been inspected. Again, all the sewer lines, you may need to have them rotted periodically if the roots are found their way between the joints and starting to grow on the inside. But the periodic inspection will let you know what's going on.
Winter maintenance. Okay, so we're getting towards winter now. So we got some things that we got to consider. Okay, disconnect for sure. This is one of the biggest things that we see is folks don't disconnect their garden hoses. Okay, so now you have water, you turned it off, you got a spigot, you got a hose, sprayer on the end of the garden hose. It's completely full of water. It's connected to your drain. It freezes and your pipes burst because they can't handle that expansion of the water. Okay, so make sure that you pull those off. I like to have the hose drained anyway, just in case I'm gonna need it. So however you do it, get all the water, throw it over the limb of a tree, pull it, and that'll just get all the water to flow, and then you can store that. Insulate any pipes in cold areas near the outside walls. Check if you have a crawl space, most of you probably don't. But if you do, some of those pipes that are in crawl spaces and that, it can get quite cold. And also pipes near outside walls where a lot of these places weren't insulated that great. Little corners in that. Maybe you have a little draft coming in through one spot and it's hitting a water line right there and you haven't run the water for a while, they'll freeze. Seal cracks in the foundations, the porch, the stairs, all around there. It's always good to seal any cracks that you have. Any outside air that can come in, it's good to get that taken care of. When it's extremely cold out, polar vortex or the 26 below like we had last year, holy cow, your sinks, you're going to probably, your kitchen sink is very often on an outside wall, all right? And those pipes will generally come up through the bottom of the cabinet, okay? But that cabinet is on that outside wall and it gets cold as can be on those cold days. So if you have some of those water lines that are in areas like under cabinets, open the cabinet doors on those days. Let warm air go in there. If it's really, really bad and you have one, somewhere that freezes often on those cold days, leave the faucet drip. Running water can't freeze. That's why obviously, as long as you have water flowing through a pipe, it for the most part will not freeze. If you're going to go on long vacations, okay, so if you're going to leave and you're going to leave us, the rest of us in the Chicago winter, okay, you may want to, now you got to be careful about this, but you may want to just shut your water down. But if you have a boiler system, probably not a good idea because your boiler at some point was doing your heat, may need to, for whatever reason, draw some water in there to keep operating. So you wouldn't want to, starve it of that kind of water that it would need. So you just have to be smart about that and check out your system. Forced air system, probably not much of a problem.
And of course, don't shut off your heating system.
Yeah, don't do that.
Turn it down, but don't shut it off.
No, never do that. Common problems, low water pressure. Okay, Jack, we had talked about this. Low water pressure in, let's say, water pipes here. Corroded, calcified in these galvanized pipes like we saw the picture of, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You could have broken water supply before it gets to the meter that you don't even know about, right? Could be draining out right near the sewer, going down the sewer like we've seen before. That you have either a burst or a kink in your water line. It's going down the sewer because years ago they built them. They put them right near each other. Now you got to separate the water and the sewer 10 feet. But years ago they put them darn near right on top of each other, the same trench. Sometimes when you get a break in that water line, it will go to one of those joints in the clay like we showed, and then the water will be going and you don't even know you have a water leak. but you have low water pressure, something to think about.
Look for any low spots in the parkway. Sometimes there'll be a sinkhole generated because of the water leakage.
That's the ground would kind of sink down because of the,
Yeah.
okay. Slow drains, you may have slow drains. This is any of the drains, whatever it is, of a tub drain, a kitchen sink drain, a basement drain, whatever it is, improper pitch. Okay, drains are supposed to, be pitched downward. Remember gravity, the laws of physics, water is going to flow downhill. We pitch these things at a certain angle so that everything flows out nice and smooth. And over time, things shift, things change. Sometimes that pitch can flatten out and everything doesn't go quite so easy. Blockages in these lines cause drains to be slow. All the grease buildup and the soap and the hair and outside in the sewer lines, the roots in that will cause drains to run slow. And you'll notice those signs, you go to brush your teeth and you're brushing, you're not supposed to leave the water on. I know I have many, many times, but you're brushing your teeth and all of a sudden the water just starts building up in the bowl, right? We've all seen that. It's not going down very good. The line's clogged with something. Job is to find out what it is. Let's see, sewer smell. You guys may have sewer smells, as we talked about earlier, as far as that cast iron and those galvanized pipes. A lot of times the venting pipes that are behind walls and you don't see them hardly ever, those tend to rust out in that. And you get one little rust hole or one little hole through there, you've constantly got sewer gas going from the city sewer lines. It goes through all your drain lines and it comes out that stack on the roof. You guys have seen the round pipe coming out of your roof and wondered, hey, that's a sewer. What is that? Well, that allows the gas to come out, but it also allows air to come in. So when you use your drains, fresh air can follow the water on its way out from the city. That way your line doesn't gurgle. It's like kind of like the 2-liter bottle of pop and you turn it over and the air goes gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. But if you punch a hole in the top of the bottle, it'll just fly right out. That's what the venting system for your sewer system does. And oftentimes if those rust out, you smell that sewer gas.
Yes.
And it drives you crazy because you can smell it one day and the next day you don't smell it. You smell it over there and then the next day it's not over there, it's over here. It's just a weird kind of a thing. We find those things with smoke tests and stuff like that. So those are, if you have that, don't feel that all is lost. You can figure that out using a smoke test. Clogged drains, cracked pipes, we just talked about that. The one thing about not enough water that Jack talked about was not enough water in those P-trap, the basement floor drain P-trap, okay? Jack explained that under your floor, those floor drains have the same exact curvy trap like under your sink. You just can't see it because it's under the ground and there needs to be water in there. Now, if that water evaporates out, then you've lost the water in there, creating a seal. Sewer gas will come out of there. Okay, so all you got to do is go there and fill in a little bit more water, pour it in there, and it'll come right on up. The other thing is if you've had a backup and you've had sewage come out, either in the floor drain or was there, and that floor drain didn't get flushed out really good, you're going to have some sewage in there. It's just basically going to smell. You'll know that. What else? Common strange noises, banging, water hammer. Anybody ever turn their water off and all of a sudden they go a noise like that? That's generally water hammer. We put in air chambers inside the lines in that to prevent that, to give a little bit of cushion for when the water is shut off abruptly and the energy that it has behind it is going to stop. Well, it's going to give it a little buffer. Sometimes, and you got to, here again, draining old systems, sometimes those air chambers will get concentrated with water and they basically have no more air in them. Draining your line down, getting all the water out of the system, filling it back up will allow those air chambers to be fixed, to have water back in them. You got to make sure when you refill, you go slow because the sediment in those old galvanized pipes can break free and then flow to your shower cartridges and then you gotta clean that all out. Frozen pipes, okay? watch out for those. We talked a little bit about that. And then basement flooding, whether it's from the city backing up on these torrential rains we have, or whether it's from your own water because it can't get downstream because you have a root blockage or a break in a pipe or something like that. You want to take this one?
Just a few things for a homeowner to do. Flush water heater. And again, especially on newer units, we recommend regular flushing once a year. If the unit is older, let's say more than 6 years, and never has been flushed, we really don't recommend flushing it because there is a lot of sediment built up at the bottom that can cause problems. Replacing the various toilet parts such as seats, handle assembly, you can get those in big box hardware stores, flappers. Again, those are relatively straightforward for a handy person to do. Replace the P-trap under the sink. Those are kits available in PVC traps and tubular components that can be used. Cleaning minor clogs, slow drains. Disassemble the P-trap, flush it out real well, remove all the sludge accumulated, put it together, make sure that the gaskets are functioning correctly. Plunging your fixtures with a regular rubber plunger.
Just a regular plumber. I mean, that's going to happen, right? They wouldn't sell them, you know.
I mean, low flow toilets have this disadvantage. Sometimes you have to use it. Recommend using enzyme-based pipe cleaners, such as
Like BioClean?
BioClean, which actually contains a certain strand of bacteria that keeps the pipes continuously clean, rather than heavy chemicals, such as drain or liquid plumber. Those have a tendency to corrode the piping, especially metal pipes.
And when you're talking, that's what most of y'all have, unless it's been changed. You pretty much have galvanized drain lines, cast iron drain lines. You don't want to put those harsh chemicals in there at all. Tips?
And common tools, plungers.
Mm-hmm.
Have good one. Obviously, everybody needs that. Sinks run water 15 seconds after finish, just to flush debris, any hair or things like that made its way down the sink.
My bathroom sinks tend to clog up a lot with toothpaste and shaving, you know, all that when I shave and rinse that up, all the shaving cream and all that, especially because your sink P-traps are generally 1.25 inches. They're a little bit smaller than your kitchen one, usually. So they tend to clog up at the bottom of that P-trap. So certainly as a homeowner, knowing how to disassemble and reassemble that P-trap could really prolong before you actually have to call somebody to snake out the inside of the pipes that are behind the wall.
Sure. For utility sinks and laundry tubs, if the clothes washer drains into the sink itself through one of those U-shaped hoses, we always recommend using a lint sock or a lint catch filter, whatever they call it, like a mesh type of filter, to prevent accumulation of the lint inside of the P-trap, which is only 1.5 inches diameter, and they do have a tendency to clog up. Use strainers to keep some of the debris out of the drains. That's just going to make your life easier.
That would be like this little rubber one at the bottom of the page, kind of, that you could put over your shower drain or your tub drain so that your hair, you know, my boys had long hair during this pandemic, and they couldn't get their hair cut now, which I wasn't used to, and all their hair would go down and clog the strainer that we had there for ends. So it was those definitely work and will prevent you from having clogs.
Yeah, it'll make life easier cleaning it too.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't ignore any leaks. As water is expensive, you have to pay for the water usage. At worst, water can cause a lot of damage to woodwork, floors, ceilings, mold, structural damage. Very expensive to fix. A common use of a plumbing tape, which is a Teflon tape used around the threads of threaded pipe components. Wrap it 3 times clockwise before connecting, before assembling the fitting. Do not over tighten the fittings. Start off easy. Try if it starts to leak a little bit, then give it a little more until it stops leaking. Water heater temperature settings, 120 degrees is by code. Anything more than that becomes dangerous, and unless you have a thermostatic mixing valve, keep it at that setting.
And if you're having to crank your water heater way, way up in order to get hot water, that's a sign of a problem with the, like we talked about, the sediment buildup in the bottom, where the water's not directly, the burner underneath is not directly hitting the water there. It's having to go through a bunch of built up calcium through all these years, and then you got to keep cranking it up to keep it going. Shouldn't have to do that. It should be it should run pretty easy at 120. It's pretty hot water.
Right, Chris. Older tank type water heaters, for the reason they lose their efficiency. So if you have to do that, it's time to think about the new unit. And of course, always keep in mind caulk and grout around tubs, sinks, and shower bases. If there's voids in a grout, that can cause serious damage, moisture damage to the floor below.
And we get lots of calls for that. I know that guys will go out, customer calls, says, boy, I sure have a leaking shower or whatever. And it's really not a leaking shower. If you really inspect the grout, you can see a little line there where it's separated from the tile, and it gets right behind there because water's splashing all over in the shower, and that'll run down behind that tile, and it'll look like a leak, but it's not. It's a grout. You really got to inspect that good. You're right on there. Why to bring in the professionals? Okay, even good systems, as we've talked about, the galvanized line, the cast iron lines that you guys have in these systems, in these homes, the clay outside and that, these were designed to last a certain amount of time. Now, most of these homes are very, very old, and a lot of them have all the original everything in there. They've far outlasted their useful life, okay? And right now, a lot of you are looking at, you're going to be needing to upgrade a lot of this stuff at some point here. We mentioned that the third bullet point there is the pitch of the pipes have changed. That's time. You let anything sit long enough and the ground moves and the structures move, it's going to change the pitch and things like that. That's better served for plumbing professionals to look at that stuff. And then when you're talking about fixing underground stuff or even under the basement, sometimes just getting the kind of tools you need, whether it's jackhammers, backhoes, all of that stuff, pipe cutters and that, just renting that stuff, you're just better off hiring somebody else to do it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. A lot of times people are better off doing what they're really good at and then letting a plumber do what he does, and you save time that way, believe it or not. Ongoing problems, as Jack said, little leaks, and that can cause greater damage everywhere. And a lot of times not fixing something now because either money or I don't have time to get that done, it creates more problems in the lines or whatever later on down the road, and you end up paying a lot more than you would have paid if you'd have fixed it when it was a small problem. In these sewer lines and that, and in the houses, when you talk about water lines, galvanized lines that are on the verge of rusting, you can see them rusting. They're starting to run very slow. You know they're on their last legs. A lot of times, instead of fixing them now, then you end up with either a flooded house, flooded basement, clogged drains on the Thanksgiving dinner. All those things happen. So it's a good idea to be proactive.
And of course, when to bring in the pros. Those are the signs of trouble or just warning signs. Do have your system inspected on a regular basis, especially if you know that your sewer line is largely original, has not been totally rebuilt. If you notice base dampness in any places in the basement, on ceiling walls or floors, near pipes, a musty smell that's just starting to occur, discoloration on walls, that could be a sign of trouble. leaking, corroded, rusty pipes. If remodeling kitchen, laundry, bath, a very important question to ask, and every inspector is going to ask it. Can the new system, can the water supply system support the new fixtures? There are calculations that need to be performed in order to ensure that there's a proper amount of gallons per minute flow to the home to support the existing number of toilets, sinks, bathtub, showers, etc., plus the new contemplated addition.
I would add one quick thing in there. We don't have it listed on there, but if you end up deciding to finish the basement or something like that, it's always a good idea to camera the sewer line that's under the floor. Better to find out before you put all your new tile, all your new flooring, all your new carpet, whatever you're going to do, better to find out if you've got an issue going on underneath the floor before you do that. I've even seen big companies, big companies build stores, come in, do a new place. They got all their cash registers all over. And next thing you know, we're digging right in the cashier's line right there, fixing their sewer line. Whereas all they had to do was have their general contractor, their developer, actually look in the sewer line first, and they would have saved thousands and thousands of dollars. And that they're not only lost in what they had to pay, but loss in revenue, because you can't run the store like that. You're gonna have to shut it down for a couple of days.
Other issues, frozen pipes, especially in wintertime. We have equipment that can handle it and get you out of trouble. Any issues with the water heater, of course, give us a call. Smell of sewer gas, strange noises in the piping, low water pressure was mentioned before, slow drains, flooding, basement floor flooding, or any leaks, and of course gas leaks. In the case, call the gas company immediately. They'll be there right away with special equipment, and they'll be able to pinpoint the areas where the leak is coming from. Very likely they'll shut down the gas supply for safety, and insist you call plumbers or a plumbing company to fix the issue. But they'll do the first step in terms of pinpointing where the leak is coming from, or whether in fact it is a leak.
Yeah, and then a plumber will come in there and they'll pressurize the system and they'll take a look at that. And then at that point, you'll evaluate whether or not you're going to change a couple of spots, or if all the pipe looks the same, you may want to consider just reworking the gas pipe while you're doing it and you're shut down. System improvements to consider: replace the lead water service line with copper. You know, that's a very hot topic now. That's not going to go away anytime soon at all. Eventually, we're all going to be replacing our lead lines with copper lines. It's just going to be a question of when. Repipe your home water lines. Okay, get rid of the galvanized and replace them with copper. You're going to have much better flow to all your fixtures. You're going to not have restricted, little debris and that breaking free and clogging the cartridges and things like that. And you're not going to have to worry. Most of all, you're not going to have to worry that you're going to have a problem with your water system. You're going to be able to go ahead and turn everything on and no problems, which is nice. Install whole home water filtration system. Jack, you mentioned chlorinated water from the city. And there's whole home filters that companies sell that will actually filter all the sediment out first, and then it will filter all the chlorine and other chemicals. There's bunches and bunches of trace amounts of different chemicals and all that. It filters all that stuff out, and then a lot of times it will they'll have a water conditioner after that, and that actually kind of changes kind of the structure of the water. And all those little mineral deposits that we talked about having to get rid of off the shower heads and the faucets and that, they no longer stick. So all those minerals just go through. They're not of a polarity that they stick to the stuff. They pass right on through.
Able to flush through.
They flush right through.
System, right.
And replace gate valves with ball valves. A lot of these old gate valves, you know, you twist, and they have the moving parts in that. You can replace those with the single quarter turn ball valves. Work much better, reliable as heck. Not as many turns to shut the water off. On the slide, you'll see a frostless hose spigot, and we've shown you the little cross section there of how it works. And in this case, you don't have to have, when you put these in, if you can, you put a shut off to them too, in case you want to service them or whatnot. But as far as a homeowner operation, you know, you don't have to shut that off every winter. You can turn it right off, and it turns it off, that hose spigot. If you look at it, the stopper that turns it off is on the conditioned side. So the water is being held back on the heated side. So what this means is that should you choose to, you've seen the Chicago winters, right? It gets cold, and some days it's warmer out, and some days it's colder out sometimes. But you don't have to go and turn the shut off on the inside. You just can use your, your hose bib year round. Not a big deal. Upgrading your fixtures to energy-saving shower heads and toilets and things like that. Good idea. You don't want to be wasteful, and putting in new fixtures is good. To some extent, some of the toilets, the low flow toilets I would warn you that they can cause issues with the clay lines and the cast iron in the basement floors. So you got to be mindful of that. Upgraded appliances, things such as, we have a picture of a tankless water heater right there on this slide. Those tankless water heaters you can mount to the wall. You get some floor space back. Those give you continuous hot water. It's not instant hot water. Water still needs to start at the water heater and go on its way as it gets to you. Okay, but it's as long as you're not running the flow rate faster than that they can make. And most of those heaters can generally, you could take 2-3 showers or 2 showers and use a washer and not have a problem with not having enough hot water, but it'll run for as long as you want to use it. You never run out. Those are nice. Those are really, they've come a long way with all that.
Kris, one more item that's worth considering too. It's kind of new on the market. Those are called automatic leak detection devices, leak detection valves. They're even required by some of the home insurance companies. And what they do is it's basically a valve that's mounted in your water system that is a smart valve that detects unusual water usage. Let's say you out of home on vacation and a pipe bursts and starts leaking water. The device will decide that this water usage is not proper, it's not per pre-programmed schedule, and will shut down the house water supply, preventing water damage before it occurs. It's something that's relatively new on the market. We've been installing those, and I think it's a very good idea.
That's a great, boy, we didn't have that in there. That's a great tidbit that you threw in. That's a great, because those really do more and more. We're putting more and more of those in.
Became very popular.
And if it detects, like, your average shower is 20 minutes and it kind of learns the behavior in the home, right? And then all of a sudden the water's on for 45 minutes and it says, uh-oh, shut it off. There's something going on. And they have remotes and stuff like that. So they probably have smartphone apps, to be honest with you, I would bet now.
They do.
They do?
They do, yeah. They'll actually notify you that the water has been shut off for whatever reason.
What do we got here? Disconnect downspouts from the sewer system, right?
Yeah. What to do about the sewer systems? If you can disconnect the downspouts, it's a good idea because it lessens the load on your sewer pipes, especially if they are prone to blockages such as sewer roots, etc., which they can cause as a stormwater backup into your basement and flood your basement.
That'd be the worst part. Your sewer's clogged, your downspouts are running into your sewer system. It can't go downstream, so where's it gonna come out? Floor drain, probably, right?
Basement, yeah.
Come out the floor drain, it's gonna flood the whole basement. Now, your basement may flood with some water, but certainly taking those downspouts and splashing them somewhere else is going to eliminate all that rooftop water that would be going down in there right away, just instantly right down there.
The obvious things, field seal cracks in the basement to prevent seepage. Also, take a look at your grading around the perimeter of the foundation. Oftentimes, all the houses with the settlement, you will see that the ground pitches the wrong way. It actually pitches towards the foundation. So any water collected around the perimeter of the foundation, it just flows right down into the foundation footing, and possibly into the basement. It really should slope away from your home. Sewer repair, reline, replace, number of options available to repair any issues with broken or shifted or otherwise damaged sewer pipes. Again, camera inspection will tell us what the condition is and what some of the methods that could be used to improve the line.
And on these slides, and these are fairly important slides for you guys to look at, you'll see the collapsed pipe, the crack, corroded, all of those things that can happen to these clay pipes, okay? Because when they were put in on a nice, good, strong bed, and over the years, the way they were put together, the cement that was used to seal the joints has deteriorated a little bit or had a crack. The tree roots, which are searching for nutrients, right? Especially in drought in the summer, they go right, I don't know how they know, but the trees know, they go right for that water source, and that's right into your clay sewer system. And then those roots, just like you've seen, like you've been walking in the street or in the city, and there's trees in the parkway, and you know how they're pushing up the sidewalk and it's coming up, they do the same thing in your sewer line. When they get in the cracks in between those clay gaps, same thing, they're pushing and growing in there, and they pop those. And once those lines start breaking, then remember the joints are every 2 feet. You have one joint that's not even an arm's length away in the water, and that is going to start working on that. The slide in the bottom left corner, those two slides, show that you can, and Chicago does allow sewer lining. You can, through various technologies, you can actually PVC, well, it's not quite PVC, but it's basically the same thing. You can actually shoot a liner down there that encapsulates and covers the whole inside of that pipe. No seams, no joints, no nothing. And the roots don't come in there anymore, and the line is locked in place. So it's a good alternative to just digging everything up. Certainly it's better for the landscape and all that stuff if you don't have to dig everything up for sure.
Symmetry.
Go ahead, take that one.
One thing to mention, that Chicago does have a private drain program that will address any issues found under the city streets or on a parkway. So if there's any breakage in your sewer pipe going out to the street connection, we have to notify the city, and they'll address it. The crew will repair it.
Yeah, there's some scheduling and stuff like that in there, but definitely if you're able to get the city to do that, if there is breaks on the city, as you guys are, you're lucky you have that program, because those repairs in the street are expensive. I know that.
Sure. Yeah, I can save a lot of money that way. System improvements to prevent flooding, install flood control systems, overhead sewers help a lot, or check valves. Check valves or the backwater valves, which prevent flooding, sewer backups into your basement. Internal drain tile in a basement. That is, if you have foundation seepage, they will keep the basement floor dry by using electric sump pump installed in a basin, collecting the storm water and then draining it outside of the home. Abandoned catch basin. It is perfectly legal, and it's a code allows to remove the old catch basins, especially as they deteriorate. The bricks inside of a catch basin becomes loose and starting to seep the internal water into the surroundings, and sometimes through the foundation to the basement. We see that oftentimes.
Okay. Oh, where's That concludes, what time we got here? Wow, that was just about 1 hour. Rebecca, great job on that. So it'd be question time, I guess. We'll turn that over to our moderator here.
Yeah, thanks. That was really amazing timing. It's like the most perfectly timed presentation we've ever had, maybe. We did get a bunch of great questions that came in while you guys were talking. I might skip around. I'm going to do these in the order that they came in, but some people have many questions, so I just want to be fair to everybody, so I might jump around a little bit. The first one was, are grease traps obsolete? And if not, how often should they be cleaned out?
Grease traps are no longer required by code for residential construction, such as bungalows. They're no longer necessary. Some people like to use them depending on their system, but they can be removed. What's involved is that the original plumbing connects the kitchen drainage and oftentimes laundry directly into the grease trap, and from the grease trap there's a drain connection into the main sewer line that goes out to the street. So in order to abandon the grease trap, you have to make sure that the kitchen and laundry drainage is rerouted to connect directly into the sewer line, bypassing the grease trap, and then you can just backfill it, fill it up and get rid of it.
Okay, great. And some questions I noticed too, you guys might have answered along the way, but because people jump in and out of Zoom all the time, it never hurts to sort of reiterate things. When draining boiling water when you're cooking, is it best to run cold water down the drain first to protect PVC pipes?
Yeah, you should never put straight up 200-degree water down the line. You should always turn the faucet on, and then that way you temper the water. That's always a good idea to do. It's something that most people don't really think about, right? Water down the drain, but you should temper that water.
That makes it easy on the gaskets and the drain tubing.
I have to be honest, I always wondered about that too, so I'm really happy that it came up. Is there any maintenance required for a tankless water heater?
Yes, there is. Tankless water heaters are very sophisticated devices. They have internal, essentially, computers which monitor the performance, the parameters. They gauge the combustion to make sure that it's within the parameters by checking the various combustion gases to be in the right proportion. If something goes out of those parameters, you get an error message and probably oftentimes a shutdown of the system. One of the key issues that we find with tankless water heaters is that they have a tendency to accumulate mineral deposits, sediments, just like any other water heaters, except they are more sensitive. So we recommend annual check of the tankless water heaters, just like with any sophisticated, let's say, high efficiency boilers or high efficiency furnaces, just to make sure that things is running correctly. If you do not have any incoming water treatment devices, then every year or every couple of years, very likely that unit will need to have the heat exchanger clean in order to remove the accumulated calcium, magnesium. Basically, what we do is we use solvents, which are kind of light solvents, almost like a consistency of vinegar. They'll remove the deposits and make the unit run clean. There are certain devices available that prevent the formation of the calcium, and this is what Kris mentioned before in whole house filtration. That basically prevents accumulation of the deposits and makes the unit run more reliably without a need of cleaning as frequently.
Yeah. So if you had the water conditioner, let's say that you had a 3-part whole home water filtration system, and that last part is the water conditioner that keeps the scale from building up, you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about this that much. they also sell for these these tankless, they sell a scale blaster that you can put on, and that's right where it comes. It does the same thing as a whole home filter, but it's right there before it goes. And then you don't have to worry about that at all. It goes right through it, and you virtually never have to do the deep cleaning like Jack just talked about to get that heat exchanger, because the stuff just doesn't generally stick to that as far as the Navian tanks, I know.
Right,
you
and
know.
manufacturers do recommend using those treatment
Yep.
modules.
Okay, great. Can you change out the galvanized for PVC inside of the house?
What was that?
Can you change out galvanized pipe for PVC inside of the house?
Can you?
Okay, well, for drain piping.
Yeah, for drain piping.
For drain piping, yes.
And where can you not use PVC? Because I know that's come up in past seminars too.
If you are talking about hot and cold water supply pipes, they really need to be copper or galvanized. In Illinois, those are the only, as far as I know.
Chicago, you're not putting in CPVC in the walls.
Yeah,
you're not doing that in Chicago.
Chicago, no.
And then no PVC under the ground, which they allow that everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Even the city relines their own. You know, I think after a while, the city realized that, hey, us as the city of Chicago are relining our main lines. Maybe we ought to let the residents reline their main lines too. And you know, because for years they prohibited us from doing that, but we can do that now. And now I think they are seeing the light as far as the PVC under the ground, because it's a better product. It is, in my opinion, a better product than cast iron or clay. It doesn't clog up as much. Everything is smooth inside there. It can flex a little bit instead of just break outright. But for now, above ground use, as long as you are, I want to say 3 units or less in height, you can't. They don't use PVC in these high rises and stuff like that. That's all, you know, galvanized and cast iron and copper.
All right. Do you recommend PEX piping for kitchens and or bathrooms?
Excuse me?
PEX piping.
PEX piping. Do you recommend PEX piping for kitchens and or bathrooms?
Not in Chicago.
No.
No, it's against the code in Chicago.
It's kind of the same. Let's see. How do you flush a water heater?
Flushing a water heater. Now, flushing a water heater, you have the valve at the bottom, okay? And you should be able to hook a hose right up to the valve. That's a, you know, you turn the water heater off, okay? You can turn the burner down to pilot, okay? And then hook hose up to it, get it into a floor drain that you know functions, okay? And that will allow water to go down. And you can go ahead and open that, and you're gonna go ahead and keep allowing the cold water to come in. Because remember, the cold water will come in from the top of the unit, and it goes through a tube, and it is actually comes out on the bottom of the unit, and the warm water is up high, okay? So by leaving that on and flushing it, you got water coming in, it's kind of creating a little turbulence down there, and away it goes. And you certainly want to flush that until that water is running clean. But you want to make sure that you use that valve enough, or you're prepared to go ahead and change it out if you have to, because a lot of times if those valves just have sat there for years and you open it, a lot of times you go to shut it and it won't necessarily shut off. So something to keep in mind before you tackle that on your own.
Okay. How bad are products like Drano for clogged pipes, and what are some other options?
Drano are very harsh chemicals, acidic. I think sulfuric acid is part of the
What
component.
it is, for sure.
Yeah. So they're actually pretty good on PVC piping if you have those. However, the problem is when they meet old, already corroded iron, steel, like galvanized steel, or tubular components, which is like the shiny brass, they have a tendency to increase the corrosion process. If the pipes are old, you may find that it'll start leaking when you use often the chemicals often enough. So that's why we don't really recommend those.
And there's plenty of stuff. If you just go to any of the hardware stores or go ahead and look on Amazon or whatever, if you're looking for enzyme based, now they're not enzyme based. What you won't get is you won't be able to go purchase a bottle that you pour down and you have a clog and the enzymes are just going to eat up the clog. It just doesn't work like that. For a clog, you have to physically remove it. There's nothing, as long as you're not using that acid, that's going to eat up the clog, okay? Because that's dangerous. It's one of the first things a plumber will ask you is, if you have a clog and you call a plumber and say he shows up and says, I'm here, first thing he's going to ask you should be, did you put Drano or anything else in here? Because that stuff splashes in the eyes and everything else, and it's just not good to get in your eyes. But those enzyme-based systems, what those are more of is their maintenance systems. And here again, we've gone to many houses where we see a bottle of those and it's just sitting there. You have to use them generally monthly. Okay, so you would have the line cleaned and done, and then you would treat it with a BioClean or another one of these systems or another one of these products. And that, you know, you fill it up and you add it in there and then you flush it through. And then the next day you go and you clean it all out like that. But what happens is those enzymes actually eat grease and the soap and all that. They break it down. And when I first became a plumber years ago, and I said, oh, these things can't work. And sure enough, I took a ball jar and put some in, and I took a whole big thing of bacon grease and put it right in the ball jar. And sure enough, after a little while, I started looking at it, and all the big clump of bacon grease started becoming a bunch of small little balls and that. So I know it works, but the key to that is you actually have to do it. You can't just buy it and it works. You got to buy it and put it in there each month. So as long as you're diligent about that, it will actually, those will work. They help.
Okay. What if your water pressure is low? Would that be a homeowner issue or a city issue? I assume, I mean, it matters where the clog or where the corrosion is happening. If it's out in sort of the main supply line, I know that comes up a lot with our members as well. Who pays for that?
Well, something like that, you really need to have somebody analyze the house plumbing, because it could be if the pipes are older, it's very possible that it's a result of buildup of mineral deposits inside of the galvanized pipes, preventing the proper flow to especially upstairs bathrooms. We have gauges that we install on the fixtures, and we can verify if the house pressure is sufficient. That can tell us pinpoint where the pressure loss is. We've seen situations where the supply line, for whatever reason, was pinched, and that reduced the water pressure. We have seen situations with some very old houses, the supply line was not even lead, but prior to lead, they used actually steel pipes, which was just like the house plumbing it was coated with sediment to such a degree that there wasn't much flow coming in. At that point, you know, of course, the line would need to be replaced. Who pays for it? Kris mentioned before, is essentially owner's responsibility. The city of Chicago does have, seems like a pilot program where they will be helping out to a certain extent with some of the expenses associated with replacement of the lines, but also based on the I guess the income level issues, right?
Yeah. Would you say that let's say that a homeowner has their line coming in and it comes up through the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have their shut off there, okay? And oftentimes they'll have a drain, a boiler drain that you can turn on and off, right? To drain water out of the system. That would probably be the best place to see how good the water pressure is, the closest you can get to the water source. Now, if you open that up and it comes out hell's bells, just wide open, really flying, and then you go up to your kitchen, you turn it on, it's barely coming out, you should be able to adequately, assume that somewhere between that valve and that kitchen is just slowing down the water. So you could probably bet that chances are those old galvanized lines are choked really, really tight with sediment. That would be my assumption on that. Not always guaranteed, because those those drains don't always open, and that on these.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but that's how we analyze the problem. And
Yeah.
I think in our experience, it's about 90% probability that it's actually the house plumbing that is an issue rather than the city connection in terms of water pressure loss.
Okay. Can the clean out valve in an outbound bathroom drain be removed?
Clean out valve.
In an outbound
in
bathroom.
an I'm
all
not
you-
understanding
yeah.
that one.
This is the problem with the Q&A on Zoom, because we can't get more information from people live that way, but okay. We can move on then, just in the interest of time, and maybe that'll come back up later.
Yeah, if they want.
Okay. We don't have an accessible water meter. Would the city have put it with the house shut off in our parkway or buried it somewhere? Their bill's not very expensive every month. Is it possible that they haven't been metered?
That would be when they pay their bill, right? They should be able to find out if they have a water meter. Do they pay their bill every 6 months?
I'm
Would
not
it
sure.
every 6 months? If they don't have a meter, generally it's a 6-month estimated charge.
Oh,
And if you have a meter, then it's every other month. So
Oftentimes you find it
every 2
brown.
months. She
Yeah.
did respond. So it's every 2 months that she
so he has a meter.
Mhm.
Those new meters, they have a remote sensor, so nobody really needs to go down there and read the dials. They pick up the signals via internet, I think, or something. So
So it's somewhere. They're just not sure where, but it
I
does.
would say, yeah, and then how can you, whether he can call the city, and ask him to come on out
they can
and
probably verify it.
find that or verify it or something. He may be able to call locates, and they'll come out and locate, because a lot of times if you're digging or doing anything out there, you can call in locates and they'll come out and they'll locate all your utilities on your properity.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because she's saying there's no
probably
accessible
like-
dial to watch the numbers going up. So okay. So locate. I did not know that. Neat. How do you know what temperature the hot water heater is? Hers or his has low, medium, and high settings, it looks like, but no actual temperature gauge.
What I do is I use a kitchen thermometer, cooking thermometer, and basically, I put it like in hot water. I run the hot water in a lavatory sink for a while, and just put in a water stream. And you can get those at all stores, and it'll show you. You don't want to be over 120 degrees. You should be about 115 usually in the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. How often should the water heater be drained? She's been in, or they've been in their house for 9 years and haven't drained it yet.
I'm not so sure that I'm touching that, to be
Yeah, I
honest
probably
with
wouldn't start now. Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
I probably
Okay.
years. I mean, the warranty on these things are 7. Their useful life is anywhere between 7 to 12, even though a lot of people can get many more years out of them if you're lucky and you get the right one. But you get near 9 years old, and I don't think I would go ahead and start because it's not going to be that long before you're going to actually be replacing it and putting in something more efficient, nicer, newer. And then obviously once you put in something new, then doing regular maintenance on it is just going to prolong the life of that fixture a lot more.
Okay. This person has a boiler and they're asking how long will the thermostat last, because they've recently noticed they have to crank up the heater and mentioned that the boiler is annually inspected and the radiators are bled. So, yeah.
Jack,
Yeah,
Jack may know more about the boiler system. We had the boiler class, we had it last week, and those guys are really truly experts on the boilers. I mean, we see all kinds of boilers in that.
Yeah.
Jackie, you could try and field the question. I would step back on that because I'm not expert
either, but I think the question was about a thermostat.
Yeah,
And
how long will the
it,
thermostat last? Because they have to crank up the heat lately.
to ask how the thermostat is. If it's like original to the house, it may need to be replaced. Some of the newer thermostats are very nice and accurate. And there's a warranty, so if there's an issue with that, that can be addressed.
Okay. So it might need to be replaced. Okay, what is the life expectancy of a water filtration system?
Those whole home systems, you get them to where it's 1,600,000 gallons, which generally is about 10 years of a regular sized family. So once you put those in, you mostly don't have to replace or do any service on those carbon filters for generally at least 10 years.
It of course does depend on the manufacturer, so it's always something to look at specifications and see what's being sold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is the same as Drano, possibly, but is Rudo bad to use in old lines? I'm assuming Rudo is a product like Drano, if you're familiar with that.
I think it's the root.
ROOTO.
Yeah, if it's
ROOTO.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the particular brand, but there are chemical root growth preventers to be, I guess, recommended to use in the sewer systems. We generally don't recommend them, and the reason for that is they tend to be acidic, and since the joints between the various sections of the clay pipe are made out of mortar, acids tend to dissolve mortar, so they'll make the crumbly joints even worse and increase the leakage. So for the reason we recommend not to use chemicals in old clay pipes.
Okay, because I had another one. I haven't heard this before. Is it okay to use lye for cleaning drains and sewer lines?
Lye, I'm not too familiar with.
Very old-fashioned.
That's an old-fashioned kind of a
A
thing.
lot of, architectural historians and enthusiasts, so we use the old, a lot of mineral spirits in our presentations and whatnot.
So you make soap, right?
Yes, I would.
Sure.
All right, so not sure, but where does one even?
Well, here's the thing: is if you sent me, the information, I can look into that and let them know. I don't have a problem doing that.
Yeah. And just to let you folks know, and I know some people are raising their hands. Unfortunately, with 100 people on a session like this in a limited amount of time, we're only responding to the Q&A section, and we're just going to get through as much as we can in the next 8 or 9 minutes here. So we're going to do the best we can for you guys. Sorry, we can't get to everybody though, most likely. Okay, I've read that copper pipes are no longer recommended. Are there drawbacks to them that you know of, or is there an alternative?
Copper pipes?
Lead solder they got rid of.
Yes.
I've not heard anything about actual copper pipes, but the solder used to have a kind of a lead base in it. Now all solder is pretty much lead free, as is a lot of the fixtures. Like not that many years ago, these faucets and all that stuff had a certain amount of lead content in them, and then they had to go ahead and change all that, and everybody had to put in inventories. Entire plumbing companies' inventories of these faucets all had to be gone, and they brought it in with new lead-free stuff. That would be the only thing I would be concerned about as far as the copper, unless that's new developments, in which case I'm not sure what you're going to use for water pipes if not copper.
With copper, like with anything, the proper installation is very important.
Yeah.
And I've seen issues where people use improper lead, the soldering compound containing lead, of course, but also it's possible to use incorrect flux, which is a solvent compound used prior to using the soldering compound, and improper use of those chemicals can cause corrosion of the copper. So it is very important to deal with people who know what they're doing and which items they're using.
Water soluble fluxes would definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're supposed to use, because there are different kinds. Some of them are used for air conditioning systems, and those are not the ones allowed to use in plumbing. It's very important to keep them separate.
Great point.
What is the anti-siphon valve for?
Anti-siphon, that is basically, it's a preventer of drawing back the water back into the supply system. And there are a number of them used, but generally they're used on whenever you have, let's say, municipal water connecting to the house supply. Those are often used like on faucets, bathroom faucets. Let's say if the hand shower is submerged into the bathtub, and there is a sudden loss, and the water is running, okay, through the hand shower, and there's a sudden pressure loss on the municipal side for all kinds of reasons, maybe failure of a pump, supplying pump. The city wants to make sure that there's no possibility of drawing dirty water back into the water supply. It's very important. There are all kinds of devices that do that on a large scale, whereas for residential uses or large commercial or multi-family residential buildings.
That would be a good, we got winter coming up, right? How
Yeah.
many water main breaks do we have?
Exactly.
Water main break, now you don't have city pressure anymore. And let's say you had a garden hose, let's say it was, for some reason, you have a garden hose leading from one of those boiler drains, okay, that aren't a new new frostless, because they have anti-siphon on them, but you got a hose in a bucket. Now you get a water main leak out on the municipal side, and that pressure draws down, and it will actually suck the water out of your bucket down into your copper pipe or into your water system, and eventually that could get into the city system.
Right.
That's that cross contamination, and they do not want that.
Right. If you have a swimming pool in the backyard or a automatic water sprinkler, you do have to have a anti-backflow device. Those are more sophisticated ones, but they essentially do the same thing, preventing the flow of contaminated water into the supply. So.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to get as many quickies in as I can here. One question, I don't know, I'm not sure where I saw it, was just if you guys could just tell us, you serve the city of Chicago and then suburbs, is that correct? Or is there a certain range of your area?
We handle the entire metropolitan area of Chicago and suburbs.
Okay. Okay. How do you prevent pipes in an unfinished basement from freezing?
Pipes in an unfinished basement. Now, generally you don't have too much problems with that, because if it's a normal basement, okay, the ground is, what's the temperature of the ground? 52, 54 degrees at all times. My basement is generally about the same condition all year round. I have an unfinished basement. I never have a problem with it. Now, where you do have problems sometimes is in those crawl spaces, where you don't have, it's not down that deep, and you don't have a floor in that. It's not that generally that 58 to 64 to 65 degrees. In which case, then they'll do various things as far as insulating the pipes, but even having little heating fan things in there
Right.
to actually keep it above 32 degrees.
Okay.
But unfinished basement, like in one of your bungalows, I don't even think should be even an issue.
Right. I think it's more of an issue of the pipes being too close to the outside wall.
That could be.
What with older houses are kind of being poor in the wall insulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's none definitely in a bungalow. Okay. Speaking of, just because you just brought up crawl spaces, how do you recommend dealing with a 2.5 to 3 foot dirt floor crawl space? They say sump pump, perimeter drain tile, and encapsulation or concrete fill. And then she added, the crawl space currently has no flood control system and an issue with groundwater seepage from the water table. So not sure if this is a plumbing question or not.
No, it's a good question, because you're seeing more and more of the crawl space encapsulation all the time. We see it quite frequently right now. Definitely getting a drain tile system installed all the way around the crawl space, going into a sump pump pit and taking out the water. That's good. Your question is, do you want to put cement on it? Okay, concrete finish it? Or do you want to encapsulate it with a watertight membrane and roll it up the sides? That's going to probably be a matter of preference, because I have no problem with a vapor barrier and a concrete floor in a crawl space. The encapsulation, I would expect, is probably easier, because you can't always get a concrete truck pulled up to these places. And then you got to actually get the concrete into the crawl space. So you're going to have to open up the side of box sill or something, and then get guys in there kind of on their knees and dragging the concrete around. Whereas with that encapsulation, you can actually bring in that stuff without too much of a problem. And then they'll roll it and they'll install it. Either one of those two methods is good, but I think probably the most important part about that is getting a drain tile in there to make sure no water accumulates in that, whether it's dirt or gravel bed that you may have in there.
Okay. Let's do one more question then, since we're at 7:30, if you guys don't mind, just one more. Let's see. Okay. How complicated is it to replace a toilet vent stack?
It depends on the building construction. If we are talking first floor in a bungalow, and there's a need to replace the entire stack from the basement up through the roof, which oftentimes is the case because of corrosion of 100-year-old piping. It really depends on accessibility, because you need to open up the walls. You have to open up the walls on every single level. Now in the basement, they're probably the good access, but on the first floor, you need to open up the back side of the bathroom wall or the bathroom wall itself. And then you have to go up the next floor, which may be either an attic or maybe a finished space. And then we're running at that point a new PVC pipe all the way from the basement connection through the various floors, through the attic, and then into the roof. It's doable. We do it all the time. It's not a low-cost project. It's one of the probably a major project, but it's certainly doable. We often recommend that sort of work whenever the bathroom is being totally remodeled, because at that point the walls are opened. We recommend basically gutting all of the old pipes, removing all the galvanized, and having a good look at the stack. If the stack is rusty, there's a time to replace it.
For sure, because all the drain lines flow into that stack. It'd be not so bad if all you had to do is kind of take the stack down and then shove the new one up through that space, but everything flows into it as far as the plumbing system. So you gotta chop it from those and replace it, or as Jack said, when you got everything open, then you just go ahead and you replace it and turn it all into good PVC and good copper.
Great. Well, that's all the questions we've got time for, but just a reminder to everybody, we are going to send out a recording of the presentation to everybody who signed up. So you'll have that to look back on if you need to. Surely you could not have absorbed all of that wonderful information so quickly, but thank you both so much. Kris and Jack, you guys were wonderful. We hope to see you again. And yeah, thanks so much. We'll be in touch for sure.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Thanks for everyone who attended.